And good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition here of the Man of Steel podcast. With, of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey, as we get ready to count down for the Steelers home opener coming up this Sunday against the Denver Broncos, which is a 12 p.m. Central Standard Time kickoff coming up this Sunday. Missy Matthews did mention on Twitter since the opening of Heinz Field back in 2001, which is almost 20 years ago, going into its 20th home opener into the Heinz Field banner right now. The Steelers have a 15-4 record, which is one of the top starts as far as like a home opener in the NFL all time. Right here, we got some latest updates real quick on the injury report, which began today for both teams. I tweeted out earlier. If you follow me on my social media, you can follow me on Twitter for the Man of Steel podcast at Man of Steel CGR, and for Instagram at Man of Steel Nation. Got quite a few guys on the injury list. Nothing to be like worried about or alarmed. I will just say is just keep an eye on the offensive line position. I'll say more so where I'm getting a little concerned with is the right tackle position right there, where that's getting a little bit thin. I mean, you got Ben Roethlisberger coming back, who of course obviously is anticipated to start a little bit slow, but I do like the touchdown to interception ratio. He opened up the game on the road in the New York Giants. And just for his first game back, I mean, obviously this is a guy who's been around the block for a long time, but just to have that communication and the huddle right there with your offensive lineman, I mean, that's the biggest difference what a lot of Steeler fans will be seeing, or any media experts or whatever, watching how this team runs this offense was with Big Ben Roethlisberger. And you always hear like comments, like why Art Rooney II, the president and chairman of the Steelers, is so inclined and open to like extending him beyond the 2021 season. I mean, I do feel like there's still a little bit of hesitation right there that they did not feel confident with the future quarterback prospects coming out of the drafts. And usually the Steelers don't pick that high in the first round, even if they do. And I just really feel like for right now, it's just listen. We're trying to move on from a guy, Ben Roethlisberger, and we see it kind of fail so far with Mason Rudolph, Devin Hodges. Devin Hodges, who finds himself back onto the practice squad, but instead they do bring back Josh Dobbs, who went on to the Jaguars last year, and he would have been the number 3 quarterback. But, it's just amazing how that works itself out. Remember, the key facet about Josh Dobbs coming back that Mike Tomlin liked a lot better was that mobility. And I definitely do feel like, Devin Hodges, to his respect, when he had to come in, fill in for a struggling Mason Rudolph, he had some mobility himself. I think the biggest thing I ask about Josh Dobbs is how well can he control, throwing the football. And I think Josh Dobbs has a decent arm. I just only question somewhat of the accuracy right there. I mean, if that situation will ever play itself out, let's just say if Ben does have to go through a relapse where he's going to be out for like 2-3 games a season. I hope that's not the case. But let's just say if you do have to call in a guy like Dobbs as opposed to a guy like a Mason Rudolph, you got to look at it. I mean, this guy has not thrown a touchdown pass in his career yet, even though he has been in 5 games. I mean, most of that coming off the bench right there. And I think one of the most horrific times, I think, right there was back in 2018, I think, when he came off the bench in that Oakland game. And you remember that game right there where he went 4 for 9, completing only barely about 45% of his passes in that scenario. I mean, that's the only thing. I mean, Josh Dobbs can move around, yes. I mean, he ran for 15 yards in that Raiders loss in Oakland. But the thing is with Josh Dobbs, if you had to have him come in for a little bit, my only concern with him is his ability to finish drives. And that's where I would look at, like, if we had to hand the ball over to him to come in, make a few snaps, that's the only part where I just slam the brakes on a little bit. I do feel like Josh Dobbs, going over to, when you look at to Jacksonville, when he did, I'm sure he had to learn a little bit. But at the same time, too, you look at, what he's capable of doing and we'll see how that continues to play its hand out. Again, if you guys want to join in on the Mess Duel podcast, once again, you can catch me streaming live right now on the live stream right now on Facebook and Instagram. The Facebook page, you can check it out at the Mess Duel podcast. Then you can also check me out at Mess Duel Nation, which is, of course, the Mess Duel Instagram page right there as we take a look at and more further right now. So definitely want to hear everyone's thoughts for right now. We do know this right now since Mike Tomlin's overall head-to-head experience with Vic Fangio. This will be his first time going against Vic Fangio as a head coach. The other two times Mike Tomlin and the Steelers have gone against Vic Fangio, he was defense coordinator, and those last two times were back in 2011 and 2017, where he was defense coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers and the Chicago Bears. He went 0-2 in both of those contests, being outscored by minus 23 points, losing 3-20 the first time on Monday Night Football back in 2011. That was an 8 o'clock game. And then you also lost about 3 years ago during that whole situation with President Trump making his enthusiasm known as far as about people kneeling during the flag or not standing. So they got caught up in that whole mess. Obviously, we saw how their game plan definitely did get thrown off here. In that contest. But still, those are two times as of late where they lost, and they did go on to lose that game in overtime right there. And I was talking to Brian Diardo off to the side about that game. And like I said, I definitely pointed out to how just 2017, it was just a lot of stuff that just did not feel right in the atmosphere, just the whole mood of the team. You lost, for starters, Dan Rooney, he passed away about a couple months after Ben Roethlisberger was pondering retirement. He passed away right on Easter weekend. You also had a situation too. Like I said, you had the whole flag scenario right there. And then, that was as good as a team right there that was a product on the field. Still a little bit of a mental makeup that was not showing up properly, where they still came up looking at times lackadaisical. And that's where I feel like for right now, with the Steelers, I think this time around, you look at it for right now, you're going into your home openers, for this time, and we'll see how that continues to work its way in the end here. But like I said, when we look at it from that perspective, it's definitely going to be interesting to see this offensive line, how this depth continues to hold itself up, keep itself afloat, and keep everybody in good standing as we look at it. And Mike Tomlin's overall home opening record since joining the Steelers as a head coach, just to give everyone a little background, he is 10-3 at home in home openers. The only three times that they did lose home openers under Mike Tomlin's watch was back in 2013, beginning with the Tennessee Titans, where they had that horrific 0-4 start. And then you also saw them lose shortly after that. During that time back in 2018 and 2019, back-to-back years to the Kansas City Chiefs. Which was a real good Patrick Mahomes Chiefs quarterback that was really starting to snap off and get its rhythm and find out how good they could actually be as getting to that next step as far as championship level, scratching the surface. And then really against a well-matured quarterback in Russell Wilson. Don't get me wrong. He had a lot of stuff setting up to that right now. And I got people join me here on the Instagram page. I do see a few comments coming up right here. One of them coming from which Nelson Senior Victor. Do you think we need to go out and get a tackle? Well, I will say this for right now. When we look at that situation for the time being, Nelson, I think if anything, you gotta learn to trust the guys who you got in the practice squad. You gotta keep in mind this for right now. I think one of the biggest reasons I think a lot of fans and people in the organization need to be thankful for this. Remember, a year ago, as far as in the practice squad, as it regularly went, your teams were only maintained to keep up to 10 players on the practice squad. This year, they did increase to 6 more additional players right there. I definitely do think that is going to be very pivotal and key for the Steelers whenever they run into situations with death. So, I mean, you got like your options right here as far as your offensive linemen you could be calling up. I mean, for right now, I mean, I know they just announced earlier today when we looked at it, they have signed tackle from the Houston Texas practice squad, Harold Hawkins. He was a former fourth round 2016 draft pick out of LSU by the Steelers, played 3 seasons, and was traded to the Bucs prior to the start of the 2019 season. Played a 1 game last season, was signed to the Texans practice squad this past off season, and was waived on cut weekend, which was that Saturday of Labor Day weekend, 53-man roster. He missed the 2018 season after suffering a knee injury during organized team activities, OTAs. He played in 5 regular season games in 2017, starting 1. But you also do got some other choices here on this practice squad, too, that we currently got on here, which I'm getting ready to get into for right now. I mean, you also got Duran Gray out of Maryland. He's an offensive tackle, along with Anthony Coyle and Jerron Jones right there. So you got some guys right here who could come up. I just think for right now, trading for someone, I mean, if we need to go out and get a tackle, it all depends. Remember, we got 16 people, so someone off this practice squad would have to move. I mean, would you be like willing to cut ties with Devlin Hodges and then to make room for another offensive tackle? I think that's the question you have to look at if you're the Steelers for right now. I mean, it's all about making room, even like when it just comes to like signing guys. I mean, you look at a guy like Cam Hayward. I mean, when you could get a deal done with Bud Dupree right there. I mean, this past July at the deadline when he has franchise tag signed. And not only that, don't forget, he's still in a grievance right now, challenging. See if he could get paid as an edge rusher, which would be like about almost $2 million more than what he's making. So for right now, no, I'd have to hold off on that. We'll see. More than likely, I would anticipate to be calling up guys from who they already have within. I mean, and that's a big reason why you got that practice squad. That's why you got the expansion. I mean, you got it there for situations like this when we try to get like depth purposes addressed throughout the season. And end quote as we look at it right here. And also, moving along right now, let's go ahead and take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers injury report right now going into this week. It was announced by the Steelers.com website. Let's go over for both the Steelers. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers first, then we'll get into the Denver Broncos right now. As far as the Pittsburgh Steelers going, you have 9 starters on the injury report plus 1 backup guard. The 9, really, I'm not going to really sweat too much over, but I will say once again for like the second straight week, one guy I'm a little concerned with is Deontay Johnson. I mean, don't forget, in week 1, he did have a foot injury. I mean, he was able to be a full participant on the last 2 days of practice, which was Friday and Saturday, simply because they had to play a Monday night game. But this week he has a toe injury, so he did not practice. Ben, I'm sure, not to be surprised by everyone, but he's definitely pulling up his card where he wants to have that Wednesday off and utilize that to his advantage, utilize the rest. And, I mean, that makes a lot more sense. I mean, Ben, if anything, you have to continue to keep yourself in the best of moves right now, the best mindset. What we got to do to make that work? I mean, I'm all for it for right now, especially coming off an elbow. He did mention to Missy Matthews that, I mean, his body definitely was sore, but so far, good news is not his throwing elbow or his arm. So that is the best thing I think a lot of people hear from. So that's the main thing right there. Having that, like, not feeling any pain in that area, I think is great. And couldn't be any more music for any Steelers fans' ears. Like I said, the only thing is we have to continue to look at what Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Florio has even mentioned it off Pro Football Talk. I mean, is it just one thing where, you have a throwing elbow, but it's going to lead to other stuff like later on. There's going to be like stuff like, like with your leg eventually, some other parts of the body, because he's playing a long time. He's playing in his 17th season. He's playing at 38 years old. I mean, he's not realistically on the level like a guy like a Brady or a Breeze as far as playing that long. I just don't feel like his diet and his workout regime is really up to par with that. I think it's good enough. I mean, there's a reason why Jay Glazer kind of like jokingly took like a little bit of a swipe at people who may remember this past May, saying like if you ever seen his workout regimen, I mean, he kind of like called bluff on it. But still, I mean, it wasn't a personal attack. I remember he got like a little bit of heat by it, and a little bit of concern by Ben's representative, and pretty much had to straighten things out. They got things taken care of. But still, I think, at the end of the day, Ben Roethlisberger, as great as Steelers fans are willing to have this guy, he still show a lack of undiscipline when it comes to being a little bit cautious. I think, this past Monday, I like the fact that he was able to take a few sacks or just not be foolish, force the ball into some certain scenarios right there. I'm just glad he played a lot wiser. I'm just glad we didn't see, much of like the stubborn Ben where he tried to put all on his back and then he'd be making mistakes. I mean, I could live with 230 yards passing right there, game manager type stats. I mean, and trusting who you got around you. I mean, he was even said it openly to Maria Taylor of ESPN following that game. As I said, listen, I mean, one of the main reasons he didn't come back for personal accomplishments or anything, he really liked the youth of this staff and the excitement, the energy these guys bring. He's excited to be around something special they got to build upon. That's all you got to look at with a guy like Ben Roethlisberger. Now, before I go into my other soliloquies here right now, and also about Ben Snow, I will get to that in just a second, Nelson. Just hold on 1 second. I'm just going to wrap up this injury report, and I'll get to your question in just a second. So just hang tight, my man. As far as for right now, when we look at with the injury report so like I said, Deontay Johnson, that's one guy who I'd be willing to keep an eye on throughout the season. It looks like this is something that's lingering right now. You have a foot injury, now it's your toe. He didn't practice today. You just missed Schuster. He had a knee injury. He did not practice. James Conner, ankle, did not practice. Marquise Pouncey, just like Big Ben, coach decision, did not practice. So I don't think it's anything injury related right there. Just want to get some personal time off. I respect that. I mean, especially for the veterans right there. Wise move. You got Stefan Wisniewski with a chest injury. He did not practice. David DeCastro still battling the knee that he suffered back on August 28th during training camp. Has not been healed up yet, so he's still battling with that. Did not practice. Zach Banner, I mean, his season is pretty much over right there. I don't know if anyone got a chance to see the tweet, the video they posted up on Twitter right there, just trying to get ready to give it a go for next year. And that's one guy Ben definitely felt crushed for, including myself and a lot of fans. Zach Banner, he was definitely the most hungriest one in this offseason, duking out neck and neck with Wilma Okorafor, trying to get that right tackle position. I mean, he was so patient trying to get that nod from Mike Tomlin, but he was showing a lot of maturity right there and saying, listen, I mean, I understand from Mike Tomlin why a starter hasn't been named. This is the most important guy in Pittsburgh I'm trying to protect right here. I mean, it's got to be difficult at times when you're a 300-plus pound lineman right there. I mean, trying to keep mobility going. I mean, that's got to be one of the toughest jobs right there when you're trying to protect the quarterback and try and get a offense moving. And just trying to still stay athletic and pain-free as best you can. Then you also got Alejandro Villanueva, nothing too much, just an illness, did not practice. I don't think it's anything COVID-19 related, but we'll see, but I don't think so. Remember, they still got that COVID reserve injured list. They couldn't say if it was for anything like that. So remember, they keep that, I think, confidential for this season. And you got Stephon Tuitt dealing with Achilles, did not practice. So basically, all the injuries that we're seeing right here off this list right here of these 10 players, 8 of them are on offense and 2 of them are on defense. And the 2 on defense, one of them are on defense. So 9 of them on offense, 1 on defense. One of them at your defensive front with Stephon Tuitt right there. And I'd be really interested to see if a guy like Daniel McCullers, remember, he was temporarily cut on cut day that Saturday, if many people may recall. But then about a day or two later, they did sign him to the practice squad. So I think they had like about $1 million in cap savings when they made that move, because since it was after June 1st cut. So getting back to your question real quick, how do I feel about Benny Snell starting against the Broncos? why not? I mean, if it's hot in the kitchen, like they say, stay away from the cook right there. I think if anything, you don't want to disrupt momentum when you got something special brewing that could potentially go. I mean, Benny Snell has been showing a lot of flashes towards the end of last year. People may recall during that stretch when they lost to the Browns. Remember, he had to fill in there. I mean, come in there against the Bengals, then a key win against the Browns, against the Cardinals. I mean, you see what Benny Snell football is all about. Losing weight in the offseason, really getting his diet in check. I mean, I had one friend of mine, Terrell Barnes, who I still occasionally keep in touch with. But remember, he pointed out to me a long time ago, one of the things when you're dealing with rookies, it's usually like around their second season is where they really start to mature up and they start getting their bodies properly ready for football conditioning and usually having like their best shapes of their lives. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, James Conner, I'm not going to totally snooze on, but for right now, if I'm seeing a guy that's moving the ball effectively and helping out Ben Roethlisberger, listen, I think James Conner, I think the writing's on the wall for him this year. I don't think he's going to be a Steeler beyond this season. I mean, you got to look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, great guy, great story, and loved how he was able to beat out cancer. Arthur Moats announcing into the draft. Love watching this guy. All the moral stuff he stands up for. A stand-up guy, and really just been a good representative for the Steelers and the city of Pittsburgh. But at the end of the day, you're like they say in sports, your best ability a lot of times is your availability. And that's the problem with a guy like James Conner for right now. I mean, James Conner, I mean, we saw what he could do 2 years ago, but you almost start to wonder, is this guy more like a one-hit wonder as far as like lighting up a fire like in offenses right here? I mean, in 2018, he missed at least 3 games and missed 4 games starting. I mean, that was right around the time shortly when he had that concussion against the Carolina Panthers. And then next year he started 10 out of 10 games, and that's it. So you really got to look yourself hard in the mirror right now. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I think the Steelers have definitely been very smart. I mean, you see this position being addressed each year in the draft. I mean, it's like they're not falling asleep behind the wheel. If it's not Conner in 2017, it's Jalen Samuels in 2018, or it's Benny Snell in 2019, Anthony McFarland. I think if anything, the Steelers do a good job as far as keeping the line rotation, keep a plan A, plan B in check in situations like that. They're looking ahead of the future. And unfortunately, when you look at a guy like LeVeon Bell in this case right now, I mean, LeVeon Bell, I mean, ever since getting his guaranteed money, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, listen, he hasn't been really doing much with the Jets. It's been kind of like a frugal situation right now. He is currently on IR with a hamstring injury for the time being. And speaking of Le'Veon Bell, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, this guy is still decent as a receiver, as a pass catching back, a guy who could block, but he's missing the luxury of what he had with a special offensive line he had in Pittsburgh. I mean, he definitely had to work as hard. I mean, his yards per attempt basically nearly sliced in half. I mean, a year ago, only a yard down. So almost 2 yards less, basically on average, as he's currently with the Jets as opposed to what he was in Pittsburgh. I mean, that's the thing. I like Le'Veon Bell, but at the same time, I listen to a lot of beat writers, like a good friend of mine I still keep in touch with every now and then, Anthony DeFeo, behind the steel curtain. I mean, many guys who looked at this guy, I mean, they've gone on to remind me, it's like, listen, Le'Veon Bell is going to realize how good he's had it with the luxury of the offensive line he's had. He's benefited so much with that, and he's going to forget how that is. Because to be honest with you, I hate to say it. I mean, it did not come out in the friendliest of ways when the Steelers did vent out their frustration. I mean, they should have stayed in their lane, of course, let him handle his business. It was a financial situation, but there's a part, like I said, in sports when you're trying to still do something special, win a championship together. that camaraderie and that togetherness in that locker room, practicing with each other, being there in each other's corner means a lot. I get it. I mean, listen, I want to see guys. Football's a hard sport, but at the end of the day, what what are you more looking for? It almost seems like a lot of guys are playing for financial and physical and mental health security these days, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing. Mental health is real, and at the same time, when you play a game like football, I can imagine how much like head trauma these guys go through when they do get hit, and how they do off the field. It's nothing to be questioned. But at the end of the day, I mean, that is real. But I do see at the end of the day, too, when you're trying to be a part of something special, I mean, what is it? Is it more about the money, or do you really want that ring, or do you really want both uh, more and foremost? And that's where it you just tend to tip the lines a lot. And that's where I feel like for right now, you get a little bit like head scratcher right there. So let's go ahead and get into it right now. Let's go into the Denver Broncos. I went over the Steelers injury report. So once again, just to recap, we have 10 guys on the injury report, 9 of them which are starters on offense, 1 on defense right now. And we'll definitely keep an eye on that. I'm not really too worried about that, just a little bit of the offensive line for right now, more so with Stefan Wisniewski and David DeCastro for the time being. I'm not so worried about blowing away, but we'll find out in the next day or two, see how serious this is as we look at it. As for the Denver Broncos, they listed for their players, 11 players listed on the injury report, which includes 6 starters, which includes A.J. Bouye, left cornerback, who's dealing with a shoulder. He did not practice, along with strong safety Kareem Jackson. That's not injury related, so he did not practice. You have Philip Lindsay dealing with a toe injury, just like Deontay Johnson. He didn't practice. Philip Lindsay, excuse me, who's dealing with a toe injury. He did not practice. He's a running back. And then you also got Garrett Bowles dealing with an elbow injury. He did not practice. He's the Broncos' left tackle. Then you got Cortland Sutton, wide receiver, limited in practice due to a shoulder injury. Then you also got Bradley Chubb, weak side linebacker, dealing with a knee injury. He was a full participant in practice. Those are your starters. Also, they also got former Steeler on here, Mark Barron, dealing with a hamstring injury. He did not practice. Wide receiver, Tyree Cleveland, dealing with a hip injury, limited in practice. Trey Marshall, safety, wrist injury, limited in practice. KJ Hamler, wide receiver, hamstring, full participant. And then last but not least, Albert Okwebonam, tight end. He did not practice, dealing with a hip injury. And that's the injury report for both the Steelers and the Denver Broncos on this as we take a look at for right now on this injury report for the Week 2 matchup and the home openers. We're going into this weekend. Steelers right now, like I mentioned, they are 15-4 in their home openers all time in the history for right now. And as far as dealing with the Denver Broncos, like I said, when we look at it too, in that respect, going up here, Mike Tomlin, he has a career 2-3 record versus the Broncos all time, which includes being 1-0 at home. The only home game that Mike Tomlin's been involved with playing against the Denver Broncos was back in 2015, where they had that comeback victory. I think it was like 14, 17 points. They were trailing in that game. That's where Peyton Manning was on the sideline, and we'll see. But for right now, let's go ahead and take a look at for right now. Like I said, fair or foul topic. Oh, wait, real quickly, before we get into that, I also mentioned top NFL quarterback coaches tandems for right now. I know Missy Matthews mentioned that the career-wise in the regular season, Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger have a career record of 116 victories with 40 losses and a tie for right now. And for right now, the Steelers, under that record, I mean, they have a career lifetime record of 124, 47, and 1. So, I mean, very impressive right there, if you ask me. I mean, right now, the number one, of course, is no surprise, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady with 249 wins and 75 losses, no ties career-wise, with 17 division titles, nine AFC championships, 6 Super Bowls. Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin are right behind them, but at 124, 47, and 1 career lifetime win-loss percentage with 6 Super Bowls, 2 AFC championships. 6 division titles, 2 AFC championships, and 1 Super Bowl. Then you got Don Shula and Dan Marino right there at 122 career victories, followed by Chuck Noll and Terry Bradshaw, 121 victories. Otto Graham and Paul Brown, 114. Marv Levy and Jim Kelly, 108. Tom Landry and Roger Staubach, 98. Tony Dungy, Peyton Manning, 92 victories, despite only playing about 8 seasons. 7 seasons together. And then you got Vince Lombardi and Bart Starr with 86 victories. And last but not least, Bill Walsh and Joe Montana at 85 career victories. And there you have it for right now. Fair or foul topic, I only got one today. Fair or foul topic, number one and the only one for today's show. Mike Tomlin will snap the drought against Vic Fangio. He'll snap the jinx. He'll finally get his first victory against Vic Fangio. I'll go fair on that one for right now, but I definitely do feel like that. Plus, you also got Von Miller out for the season, but don't get me wrong. I think for right now, the Steelers that they're going to be the team that they're going to be facing is not going to be no walk in the park. Don't get me wrong. I definitely do still feel like for right now, going up against this Broncos squad as we look at it with Vic Fangio going into his second season. With this Broncos team, a year before last year they were 7-9, and it seems like they may have gotten their quarterback situation figured out. Hopefully, they're still trying to solve that puzzle for right now, but we'll see. So they got Drew Lock coming up here, who's been a second-round pick back in 2019, 42nd overall, followed by Jeff Driscoll. But Drew Lock for right now, one good thing about him, when we look at it, he's got a good career passing rating with 95, only threw for 1 touchdown so far, 216 yards, for this season. But as far as last season goes, he went 4-1 as a starter, so he's got a good win-loss record there with 1,020 yards passing, 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. And for right now, the longest he's thrown in his career was 48. So this guy's got a good deep arm. So I would definitely be a little bit more careful with him. I would definitely say for the Steelers, just try and watch how much you're going to rush, because we saw how much late in the game. I think eventually it did catch up with when we look at Daniel Jones and the Giants, but still, right now, they get a little burned for right now if they're not careful. I think Minka Fitzpatrick, I'm looking to see step up in that game. So that's going to do it. That's going to draw to a wrap for this edition here of the Mass Steel Podcast. Once again, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey. For the Mass Steel Podcast on Twitter, it is at Mass Steel CGR, and on Instagram at Mass Steel Nation. For the Mass Steel Podcast, and Charles Prodigy Richey signing off. As always, leave you. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I got it.